I'm here with famous, infamous, legendary fat bloke Paul Sawyer. Johnny B was absolutely desperate to meet this man because of this magazine, which has got the old Praetorian Battle Report. That's
right. Yeah.
Back when you were the editor.
Yep.
Of this magazine, so obviously you've had a diverse career. This has gone back quite a few years now, and you're going to sign this one for Johnny B, which I'm sure he's going to appreciate.
Once we discuss terms, yeah.
Once we discuss terms, and I'm committed to that on camera. So, can you tell us a bit about your career before even you were editor of this? Presumably, you didn't leave school and become editor of White Dwarf.
No, not at all. I mean, I left school, went to art college. Mm-hmm. All the way through that, I was getting into role playing.
Right.
It was when Dungeons and Dragons was only just hitting these shores.
Right. The old red box, or is it even before that?
I mean, it was when there were very, very few miniatures around. Mm-hmm. I think Grenadier were doing some, even at that time, god-awful miniatures in the boxes. Mm-hmm. Hugely expensive. Mm-hmm. And I think Citadel were putting out one or two models. And I think there was also a company called Asgard, which was in Nottingham at the time, and I guess I'd come in on a Saturday morning and head over there and I'd rummage through the dust.
So you were a Nottingham boy? You were born in the Lead Belt?
Born in Nottinghamshire and always lived in Nottinghamshire, never left. Why would I? Nottinghamshire's the best. Why would I slum it anywhere else? And prior to role-playing, I think like most people of my ilk, it was all about airfix and model kits. Right. So, I was brought up from very, very early age by my uncles with the 1/72nd scale.
With the Napoleonic figures and
No, it was never Napoleonic. It's never been my thing. I've steered clear of that madness.
Right, okay.
It's always been about World War II. And other things as well. Right. But my love is World War II.
Right. So you're always looking for that German submachine gunner pose?
Yeah, or the
iconic airfix.
Lobbing the grenade.
Yeah,
Actually lobbing the grenade, not just going like most of them do.
Yeah. Do you know, I've never liked the grenade throwing model. Not that I don't like a model of a grenade, but within a unit it never looks right. It's something about shooting a rifle. I feel it could be firing anywhere or anything. It's like, why were you throwing a grenade as you're walking down the road? It never seems to look... When it's just one guy.
We never had more than one guy because most people wouldn't buy them, I don't think, because of that exact reason.
Yeah. It's like the prone guy. Just looks out of place in the squad.
So I love prone figures.
Do you?
Purely and simply because it's something different and I can actually think about the story in my head as to what they're doing.
As why one guy in the squad is on his belly?
Yeah, it's often the machine gunner or the sniper.
No, those guys, there's a reason.
Yeah.
It's when you got like one rifleman in a 10-man squad is on his belly.
Yeah, if they're all firing, and where possible, I know with Warlord, when I'm briefing the sculptors, it'll often be a case of like, what's this squad doing? I don't want a mix of things. They're either advancing, or they're in close combat, or they're shooting. Yeah. As a general theme. Yes. So you won't have 3 guys running forward with bayonets charging, 3 guys shooting, and 3 guys looking like they're bored having a fag. Yeah. But the airfix stuff, I mean, even today, they're absolutely amazing sculpts. I mean, for both scales, really. I mean, there were some real duffers when they had a different sculptor and they're really chunky. But the level of realism and dynamism were absolutely amazing, and I think people really struggle to match those even now. Just think about the 8th Army and the Africa Corps sets, and
they're still out there. Like, you can still buy those.
Oh yeah. I mean, we shamelessly paid homage to those sets when we did our bolt action 28mm 8th Army and the Africa Corps. There are some poses in there you can make which are very, very similar. Right. Yeah, the guy with the grenade, the stick grenade.
It's the same way, yeah.
The way the
his arms bent.
Yeah, the MMG. Well, it's literally the whole pose. But obviously done in different style because it's wargaming and they don't have the same proportions. Yeah.
So you got into airfix?
So airfix. My next door neighbour had a couple of older sons, and they introduced me to Mansfield War Games Club, which at the time, there wasn't any fantasy because it was frowned upon. And it was micro tanks, 1/300 scale, armour. So it's the old...
Which is it Navwar or Skytrex?
Skytrex is when they just look like blobs of lead, but they're cleverly did blobs of lead with a big steel pin in the front for them.
yeah.
And I thought that was really, really cool. So you didn't have to worry about the bendiness and them snapping off. But it did mean that you had a really, really nice barrel, and the rest of the model wasn't so great. But we are talking, late 70s.
But they were like 12 pence a model or something.
Yeah, it's expensive like that. Yeah. So yeah, and then. I went to art college, and I was mainly role playing and model kits at the time. And I ran a war games club where I grew up in Ravenshead. And some of the guys started to bring along Warhammer.
Right.
And, at that point it'd be like second and third edition.
This is fantasy.
Really. Yeah, absolutely. And we'd play a few games of that, but really it was a role play club. But that really cut my teeth for Games Workshop. And then when I went to art college, I came to summer holidays, and I knew that the factory was just down the road. It was literally 15 minutes from where I lived. So I said, well, you got any jobs going in the summer holidays?
Oh, right.
And they said, oh, yeah, just come down and interview. And I got a job as one of the mail order trolls.
Trolls, nice.
It's wandering around with a Tesco shopping trolley.
And this was when, and you probably still can in the back of it, you could order individual sprues and individual models.
At that point, it was prior to this period. It was when they were still doing. I think they had the Doctor Who license, they had the Lord of the Rings license, the original one, and they were still selling board games from other manufacturers.
Like Railway Rivals and things like that.
Yeah, so it was prior to them becoming the workshop we know, which is all about workshop.
Yeah.
Just on the cusp, but just as it was going over, it was when, in fact, it was the year they released Rogue Trader. And they also had Stormbringer, the Elric game.
Elric of Meln and Benet?
Yeah.
I don't think I realised that existed.
Oh yeah, no, they did the full range of Pantangians or the Eternal Champions.
Golden Battle Barge?
No.
Dragon Caves?
Stop it.
You're going to do Elric? You're going to do the good things. It wasn't that good a license.
But
there wasn't that much interest.
It did really well.
Yeah.
At the time, there were great models. And I think it was because it was something new, but they had Warhammer, but it wasn't the big thing that it became.
Yeah.
So much like anything with wargamers,
so you
something new came along, and they go, "Oh, let's have a look at that."
We still do that, right?
No.
And I've got thousands of epic American Civil War models I'll never paint for exactly that reason. Because this is a new thing, I must have it.
I definitely don't do that.
You definitely don't do that. Is that a lie, Paul?
What's the next question?
The mail order troll, the art college. You finish art college.
Well, I finished the summer holidays, and they said, we'd like you to stay on. And it's like, really want to go finishing my studies, do my graphic design course. It was flattering that they wanted me to stay on and do more. So off I went and did a couple of years working in design studios, and saw an advert in the Nottingham Evening Post for working in the Nottingham studio. I thought, I can't resist that. In my hobby and what I've been trained in. And it turns out that it wasn't for the Nottingham studio at all. It was sort of over the old Derby store, doing product into German, doing translation work, working with a translator.
That sounds like a very different job.
Very different job in a very different place.
And you needed to speak German well.
Other than that, the advert was absolutely fine.
But while you were there,
I
did you do that?
I did get the job. Yeah.
Do you do German?
No, I did speak it relatively well. But like anything with languages, after you've left off for a while, you just lose it.
Yeah.
But I had an appreciation for it, and of course, it doesn't help if you're into World War II knowing a bit of German. But we had specific translators who do the translation work, and then we take that text and actually produce the products. So taking 40k into German.
Right.
So doing all the layout work and the design work, making that work.
Okay.
So yeah, did that for a while. Moved on to the mail order department, doing a lot of their promotions work, flyers, leaflets, etc. Over at head office in Eastwood, as it was then. Did that for a little while, and then somehow, and I'm still not sure why or how, they wanted me to take on as editor of the Citadel Journal at the time. I think that was something that was brought back as a project for what they had at the time were like trainee, junior games developers, and it was for them to cut their teeth on. From what I remember,
this is like a staff handbook.
No, it was like a fanzine version of this.
Right.
So it would still have articles in. It would be a lot more
Irreverent.
Yes, easy for you to say.
Yep.
So I could get away with a lot more.
Right.
There's lots of things that I could never have got into here.
Right.
So I did that for a while, and then they just said, "Yeah, would you like to take on White Dwarf?" And of course, the answer is yes.
Yeah.
So,
So then you became a galactic megastar.
then I became
Covered in
the
sequins.
shape of a planet. Yes.
And you did that for a number of years?
Did it for 8 years.
8 years.
So that's the longest serving editor to date.
Right.
That's my only claim to fame.
And after 8 years, 8 years in any role is quite something, right? Especially in these modern times, we don't do the same job for our whole life. We move on. So, what was the next step after this then? After editing the most prestigious wargaming magazine there is?
Well, I moved on to work in the workshop trade sales department.
That doesn't sound as much fun.
It was a different challenge.
A different challenge. Challenge.
It did have
more pace.
Singularly the best set of people I've ever worked with in that department. Up to Warlord days. At Workshop, there were some great people. It was a great company when I was there. It was a pioneering. It was fun. You had a lot of creativity.
And this is basically phoning up retailers.
I'm talking about my whole time at Workshop was a fun thing. But the actual talking to trade accounts, I was looking after what was then the I forget what it was called. I think it was called the Elite Program. So the stores that had big gaming tables and carried lots of stock, I'd look after those guys. And yeah, that was a change. But the people in that team were amazing. I've never laughed so hard for so long. We had such a great time. And
you tend to think of those people as being really at the cut and thrust edge of the business rather than at the fun edge of it.
Yeah, they were. Yeah, we all had the same terrible sense of humour. And it's just the times I go home, drive home, and my jaw's aching, my stomach's hurting.
Right. Because that's a good time.
So it certainly made it a more bearable time. Because when you're in a sales role, you either have that mindset or you don't. And I wasn't so fond of it, having come from a creative background.
Yeah.
So that was the kind of end of the chapter for me at Workshop. Made redundant along with many other people.
So this is in the kind of Workshop dip.
Yeah, it was when they realised that they've got loads and loads of money coming in for the Lord of the Rings, and then obviously then that went away, and they'd already built their company to be this big when actually the income's this big. So it was the pogroms and the cults started. The
pogroms. Okay, that. Was that tying, because there was like a Warhammer Ancients system at one point as well, was that all?
Yeah, that was done, that wasn't something I was involved in.
Because that kind of happened in my, not anything to do with wargaming period.
That was out of the way. It was done as almost a favour to a handful of people in Workshop in high places that wanted to get involved with historicals, and they were told that they couldn't do it on their own, but Workshop would do this thing to scratch that itch for them.
Right, so it was around for a while. Yeah. So after you made redundant from Workshop, then you came straight here, or?
Well, there wasn't a here.
There wasn't, not here, because this is a brand new building, isn't it?
Well, there wasn't a here, as there wasn't a Warlord.
There wasn't a Warlord, right?
So both myself and John were made redundant around about the same time. And one of the good things that came out of that process was Games Workshop very kindly put everybody who was made redundant in touch with, I guess you call them redundancy consultants that would try and help you find another job, deal with any kind of mental issues you were having, stress, etc.
Yeah.
And they were a really good bunch of people, but myself and John met up there. And John had long had this idea of doing some plastic Romans.
Is that where it all started?
Yeah.
Those tend to sprue plastic Romans
He always wanted to do that. And so we got talking and we said, well, let's have a go at it. Mm-hmm. And so we started Warlord. It was the two of us.
So you met up with John during this kind of what Games Workshop had done. So it's quite interesting because Games Workshop is not a company that people love to hate. Games Workshop, right? Even those of us that love Games Workshop, we still want to hate on it now and then. And it's certainly not well regarded as some company that looks after its people or that cares about them. That's quite refreshing to hear that kind of thing. So you and John met up. He had this vision to make some plastic Romans.
Yep.
So you and him
decided to set up Warlord as a fledgling company to see what could be done with the sole intention of let's do some Romans and see how it goes. Mm-hmm. Maybe we should try and do some Celts if they go well, something to fight against. The plan that nobody had done plastic historical figures to that point.
Other than the stuff, there was the Sumerific stuff. I mean, there was a World War II
traditional 28th.
Yeah. I'm trying to think when people like Gripping Beast started doing plastics after you. You know this for a fact.
Yeah, I do, yeah.
Because this is your lived experience, right?
So basically, we were doing this, and we're saying, well, okay, we're going to do some Romans.
Yeah.
And unbeknownst to us, the Perry twins were doing exactly the same thing with the American Civil War at the same time.
Right.
So the two of us were like, and we all know each other very well, from meet, but we were doing this simultaneously, side by side, with each other knowing. Right. Until one of them.
And were they made redundant as part of that kind of same process?
No, at the time they were working for Games Workshop.
They're just doing this.
But they were doing it because they were allowed to have Perry miniatures as an itch to scratch to the big historical buffs, and they love their historical wargaming. So to keep them happy, they were allowed to have Perry miniatures on the side. Not something that would happen these days in the current workshop, but talking about a different time now.
So they sculpted these miniatures at work?
No, in the evenings.
Right.
There are two of them, so they can do it a bit faster.
Yeah.
It was so they were going out, and then we put our Romans out, and they went remarkably well. And at the same time as the twins were putting their ACW out.
Right.
So that's where we went with Warlord, and it kind of went on from there, really. Oddly enough, we started doing Romans, and then we said, well, we've got to have the Celts, so we bring the Celts out, and they did really well, and we started to build up more metals to go with them, and some scenery, and then we did a deal with Army Painter, who were a fledgling company at the time.
And they're huge now.
And we've helped each other. Again, we've known them for years at Workshop.
Because they're Danish.
Yeah, they are, yeah. But there's no way around that. I'm afraid they're stuck with it. But Bo and Jonas, lovely blokes. And I say we've known them for years before Warlord started. Mm-hmm. They're all ex-salesmen at Workshop, so...
Right, yeah. I don't wonder, Nottingham, the lead belt thing, is it that all the companies gravitated here? Is it that all the skill is here? Or is it just that everybody worked for Games Workshop at some point?
Probably a bit of both, really. I mean, every time Workshop has a cull, obviously that just...
A cull?
Well, yeah.
No, I know what you mean.
They don't go out with spike clubs and, like seals, but...
So they open the back of the rhino and they come out, it's culling time!
It's not an unknown thing for suddenly there to be a lot less people in the building.
Yeah.
So, that means that they're letting a lot of talent out. Mm-hmm. And if you're working at a Games Workshop, you're probably living locally. Yeah,
because, this new... It's literally around the corner.
Yeah.
From we're probably going to have some Bugmans on the way home.
A fatburger burger, obviously.
Well, I think under the circumstances, they probably will make that choice, yeah. But it is actually the only restaurant for a few miles, right?
Yeah, there's the Trent Vineyard opposite it, which is a church.
Right.
But that is, they've got a lovely canteen. But yeah, if you're into wargaming, of course you get into Bugman's.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So you make your plastic Romans. Obviously, Warlord's gone on front. Somewhere along the line, you get cozy with Rick, and he writes Bolt Action, right?
Well, Rick has been a long time friend of John, and I've known him for years. So there was always that going on, and Rick was part of the Warhammer historical crowd.
Right.
So when we first set up Warlord, Rick came on board as one of the shareholders, and he'd been writing or developing a set of rules for when the guys played together. And anybody who knows, the likes of John and Rick, they're not about points and tables. It's about being big loads of toy soldiers on a table and pushing them around with a pizza, a beer, and a few knob gags. Actually, mostly about the knob gags, to be fair.
This sounds like a great guy.
Yeah. So it's always fun, but it's not about min-maxing. It's not about rules lawyering.
No.
It's all about...
But it's about winning big when you roll a 6 and losing hard when you roll a 1, and everybody enjoying themselves.
Yes, exactly that. It's a social thing.
Yes.
So Rick had been developing these rules primarily for the Black Powder period, because that's where John and that's where the Perrys live. They live that whole period, primarily anything with black.
Smart uniforms.
Yeah, they're like a man in uniform.
They're like a man in uniform.
Yeah, that's what it says on the toilet wall. Funnily enough, in their handwriting. So he'd been developing that, and we said, well, actually, could we turn that into a product? I think he was originally going to offer it to Warhammer Historical. And we managed to get the consent of the powers that be for him to let us have it instead. So bizarrely, we started off with some Roman and Celt plastic ancients, and our first rule book was on black powder. Completely the opposite.
Because Rick himself is heavily influenced by the War Master system, and
because he developed it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I didn't spot that, but when I heard him say it, I could then see how that was the case. And Bolt Action is someone, it's very familiar to anyone who's played 40k.
Yes, but
it's not the same game.
No, it's better.
In many ways, in a great many ways, definitely.
Yeah,
it's iterated from, and it's not gone bonkers.
It's we'll come back to Bolt Action later. But no. So we had that, and then obviously. Once we got black powder and it was a roaring success, we said, Rick, we've got some Romans, some Celts. Could you do us something similar, please? And he said, yeah. And so we got Hail Caesar. And that was the first time we'd actually had the joined up approach. Because naturally, if we'd have been, planning ahead rather than being flexible, we would have said, well, okay, let's have some Romans and Celts and let's have a game to go with it. But because it was a fledgling company and we put our redundancy money into it, and we were starting off afresh, we weren't awash with cash. So we made our we cut a cloth accordingly, really.
And Black Powder, Hail Caesar, Pike and Shot, they're kind of iterated rules, aren't they? There's
so they're all very, very similar. Purposely so.
Yes.
Because, what we don't want is for every time somebody buys a Warlord game, they've got to learn a new game.
Yes.
So the joy of Black Powder is it's got this overarching system, but then there's some layered period rules to go with it. So the same with Pike and Shot. If you want to play a game of Pike and Shot, which is really the kind of the Renaissance period, a game of English Civil War and a game of 30 Years' War to the layman would look exactly the same. Large blocks of blokes with long sticks with pointy ends and some blokes with guns inside of them. But anybody who has some interest in the period will realise that the formations are different with the Spanish tercios and the way that the English worked. So there's some rules in there to allow for that level of flavour, but it really doesn't matter if you don't use it, because at the end of the day, it's a game, it's fun, it's pushing toy soldiers about. See, now you've lost. Now I've lost.
You've distracted yourself.
Gone. Yeah.
Hack and shot, right? Black Panther. So there's a lot of overlap you're saying about, and I really appreciate it. I said you get a new Warlord game, you don't have to learn. We found we're having an experience at the moment with the new Warhammer's Kill Team, and I know we're just talking a lot about Workshop today, which is not where you work, but it's such a radically different game from all of the previous versions. It's taken us a long time to learn it.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of work. I do like what I'm seeing, but it is not. What I like about a lot of Rick Priestley games is there's a lot of familiarity. Yeah. You're saying if this book has got his name on it, I'm going to get half of it without reading a word of it.
Absolutely, and Rick
and I'm already in the game.
Rick writes with a light pen, so he's not about endless rules.
No.
So
there's far more history in any of his books than there is any rules.
Yeah, exactly that. And it's a similar kind of approach we've done with, we have the license for 2000 AD, so our Strontium Dog game and our Judge Dredd game are very, very similar. The engine is the same, but they've obviously got a flavouring and a skin for those particular strips.
Yeah.
And the next one we're doing is Slain, so it'll be the same engine.
But you know that the people who are interested in this, there's probably a lot of overlap.
Exactly the reason for doing it.
Yeah, yeah.
And because we've learnt from Black Powder is that if you got the Black Powder rulebook, turning up and playing American Civil War one week, and then turning up to play the Anglo-Zulu War the next week, it's a familiar game with a slightly different flavouring. So it's very easy to just carry on
the
playing.
Unit changed a lot, but the mechanics are the same. Yeah, and once you've got some mechanics for moving and manoeuvring and deploying thousands of men using your voice shouting as the command and control system, that doesn't really change very much for hundreds of years, right?
Yeah,
just exactly how that works. I don't see why you need. Yeah, I actually find systems which are different seemingly for the sake of it, I find them quite frustrating.
Often that's more reflection on the author than the author scratching his own itch rather than or her itch than trying to give the gaming public what it needs and what it wants.
Yeah. If I'm not rolling a 6-sided dice needing a 4 to hit, whatever I am doing better be better than that. And it isn't. In overwhelmingly. Now, the move to D10s is an interesting one because I get how you've got more space. So we've had a go at Antares recently and looks at it. Okay, the person who understands basic maths here gets the fact that this is better. But there is something about 6-sided dice that I'm just emotionally attached to and invested in.
We've all rolled it prior to wargaming, games of Monopoly. It's a staple. And I guess anybody who's into role-playing will be all consumed by handfuls of shrapnel and caltrops. You're absolutely right. And I think you look at Antares and you look at Bolt Action and there's a lot of crossover. But the move to D10 was a direction that Rick particularly wanted to go in.
I don't think the game is more sophisticated because of it, undeniably. And it's more flexible, and you can there's more granularity. I get all of those.
If you put Rick and Alessia next to each other talking about the D6s and D10s, and they don't see eye to eye on that. Not in a bad way.
Is it like draw a circle and put some 2 blades in the middle?
No. It's all very. It's just that they both have fundamental ideals about what's right and wrong. That's absolutely fine. Absolutely fine. I don't particularly care myself. It's just a piece of plastic I roll, and it's a different table to roll on. So I don't have a particular. At the end of the day, it's something extra to buy, isn't it? I get to go and buy a load of D10s that I haven't had before.
What do I buy starter sets from Warlord? They come in loads of D10s these days. You have Black Powder, not Black Powder, was it Black Seas, Cruel Seas, Victory at Sea, Antares. You're becoming a D10 company.
It's the way forward.
Is it the way forward? D10s, you heard it here from Paul Sawyer says D10s are the way forward.
If you've got any stocks and shares in dice companies.
Invest in Chess 6 D10s. They get 1 million of them for £1. Right, okay. Paul, we've had a lot of your time now, so I'm gonna ask you to talk a bit, if you will, about what you do right now for the company. And maybe touch on anything you might be willing to say about Bolt Action, which is the thing my viewers are most interested in hearing about. But what do you do right now? You're a share owner in the company.
So
but you don't get the big office like John.
I get the bigger office, the studio.
But there's got other people in there.
Yeah, sadly.
There's other people in there.
Yeah, there is.
Minions and stuff.
Yeah, well, I've got to have
hoodies.
Got to have something to shout at.
Oh, right, okay. Yeah.
No.
So do you jointly own the company? Or
There's four.
Triumvirate? Or?
There's four of us. So you've just had a chat with John, and I don't know if Chris was in there at the time.
Chris, yeah.
Yeah. So Chris is the other shareholder of the four. So myself, John, Rick, and Chris.
Right.
So I run the design studio and come up with all the product design, decide what's going to be made. Now, obviously not. It's Paul Sawyer does all this. Obviously, I listen to the other guys.
You decide what's going to be made, but you don't make it.
We get that made as well. That's all in the studio.
Yeah.
All the product that's done kind of goes through me in some way.
Right.
Obviously, that team are very talented and enthusiastic guys working there, doing the sculpting and the painting and the graphics and the layout.
Yeah. We'd seen that. If it's okay, we'll take a couple of photographs in that. But we probably can't because there's a lot of things in that room.
Yeah,
we've seen things today. We've seen.
Sadly,
things
I can't let you into the studio.
We can't actually show you photos in there. We know that for sure because we know we've seen things we're not supposed to, and we respect your privacy as a company. You've got your own release schedules.
Generally speaking, it's always, absolutely, come and have a look, see the new stuff. But there are a couple of things that we need to keep under wraps.
Yeah.
That we're working on right this very moment that are all over the studio.
And the big releases for you. There's things we've seen that are all over the place today, which we're not supposed to say. It's obviously big news.
Usually we're a lot more relaxed about it, and we don't have NDAs and all that nonsense. It's
nobody asked us to sign. This has all been done on
the shop when we turned up, so they knew we were here.
Yeah.
Well, we own you now, then.
You do, yeah.
All right, yeah.
I own you. You signed
We're not making. We have what we have said as gentlemen is that we're going to send you the video that we've recorded, and you can decide how comfortable you are with it.
I'm sure it'll all be fine. We don't have that level of control. We're not. The evil empire, as it's called. We like to
other business.
We just try to treat people as people, and gamers as gamers. I work here every day, so for me, it's a place of work. As much as I love doing what I do, but I know that when gamers come, and we've just had some visitors from France, they come over here, and we like to show them around, show them stuff because it's a big thing, big deal.
Yeah. Oh, we've had a fantastic day. We get to see things. You kind of know, wargamers talk about how things are manufactured and they have these ideas about why this kit is in the wrong material. But that's very different to coming and seeing it being done. Seeing what you can see very clearly. You've got multiple processes going on here for doing different things, and all of those people are highly skilled operators at what they do. And you can see why this is. But presumably, you're the guy who decides that then. Whether you're going to make this in bendy resin or in plastic, So you're the guy. If I
work out the product plan and say
a Panzer II in plastic, you're the guy to make that happen. Mm-hmm. Is that going to happen?
No.
Okay. Boo! All right. Okay.
Possibly.
I mean, you'll make everything in hard plastic eventually, right? Neither of us will live long enough.
Yeah, we've still got even though we've got the biggest range of 28mm 156 scale World War II vehicles in the world, there are still loads to do.
Yes.
Loads to do. And that's before we say, well, actually, let's turn that one into plastic. I've got a list as long as everybody's got arms in the room.
So is your plan always to try and get as many vehicles and variants available?
It varies. I mean, obviously, the reason we put them into plastic is because we can make a lot more of them. Somebody casting by hand and casting the metal bits to go with it. Aside from, some of the wastage issues, pressing a button and having a plastic tank fall out at the tool makers, and because our business model is very much about dealing with distributors and traders around the world. If we were making them traditionally, we just wouldn't be able to supply. Both in terms of the quantity, but also the price that we have to charge that would then allow the customer to want to shell out in the first place. So I mean that's the primary reason for doing plastics, and it would be a case of us looking. The thing that drives our plastics, because I think with vehicles we've got a really good core. I think we've got most of the heavy hitters covered already.
Oh, definitely.
So now it's just a case of saying, okay, well, let's have a look at our
Well, you did a Jagdtiger recently. That's a pretty niche vehicle.
Yeah,
it's very late war and it's very small. Was that somebody's pet project by any chance?
No, it was purely and simply because Italeri, who we got a lot of our plastics through, were having some staff issues, some serious staff issues at the time. And it was a case of, we don't think we're going to be able to get you any tanks at this point. And I was like, that's really not great news. And I said, well, what have you already got in your other scales that might be an easy win? And they just said, well, the Jagdtiger. And we said, well, who wouldn't want a plastic Jagdtiger? It's a monster. Okay, so it's very niche, but it's late war where everybody plays. It's German. It's massive.
Yes.
And we knew that the resin Jagdtigers sold well. So that was an opportunistic thing. It certainly wouldn't have been on our top 20 once.
It's a pretty beastie thing for ball action.
Oh,
which is the game that you this is a 30-man game with a Jagdtiger in it. The Jagdtiger has become the game.
But but we sold loads because people want the big chubby thing. Yeah. It's like a Baneblade. Nobody's going to play with it, but they want it.
So again, I said this. There's a triumvirate, isn't there? There's the gamer, there's the hobbyist, and there's the collector, and we're all different proportions.
Actually, there's 4.
Go on.
So there's the gamer who loves the strategy, the cut and thrust, the rolling the dice, the social aspect. There's the painter. So that's the person who just loves the majesty of the look of it and puts all the effort into that. There's the modeller, it's the person that does all the scenery, but also likes to do all the conversion work. And then there's people who have done one of those 3 things, but now just whine on the internet, of which we're all the same.
We're all the same. What I was trying to say, the broader thing about as hobbyist was that there's the gaming aspect, the hobbying aspect, and the collecting aspect. So in terms of the why we buy models, I see it comes down into those 3 different things. Yeah, you're not wrong in everything you just said, especially the whining on the internet. And I think that often we are buying things purely as collectors. There are many models that I've bought. I mean, whenever you buy a model of something a dioramic, somebody carrying a wounded soldier, and everybody's got stuff like that in their collection. They want them. That's a lovely model. This has got nothing to do with me as a hobbyist or a gamer.
I think you have that emotional attachment to a particular force.
And I want it all.
And then you go, I can see how I might be able to use that. I'm never going to use it in a game.
No. I'm
going to paint it. There we go.
Yeah, but I want it.
I want it because I'm collecting those things.
Yeah.
Anything to do with British Airborne.
And I think the under-acknowledged aspect of the hobby is the collector aspect. I think is probably really powerful in purchasing decisions. Paul, by far the biggest part of our audience is ball action. So if I can, as the man who oversees what is going to be released and when and looks at all of these things, John's talked to us a little bit about some of these things. There's some great things in the pipeline, and we saw on the open day the Plastic 250, and he's told us a bit about some Italians that come out with lots of stuff.
Did you mention the variants of the 250s?
Did you mention the variants? So it's a single kit that will make 7 versions?
Not quite. I mean, you've got the base 250/1, so your standard half track.
Yeah.
And then your add-on sprues that will allow you to make any one of 6 additional versions.
Right. So this is like the mortar carrier or the 3.7.
All of that stuff. And our version is the Alta rather than the Noi. So it's the old version.
Oh, right. So is it slightly higher sided? I'm trying to remember which
it has. It doesn't have the. It's a little bit less, more engineered in terms of the angles.
Right.
So one of the key things you see is it kind of comes out and then back in again, whereas the Noi has the panels all the way down the side.
Straight-sided?
Yeah.
Right.
So it's great for kind of mid-war, the desert.
Yeah, Russia. and this is a multi-part plastic kit.
Oh, wow. Yeah. It's one of the best we've done.
It's beautiful. And we've
nice.
seen
loads of crew in them as well. So most of the add-ons have either where we managed to fit it on a winter crew and a regular crew, and obviously if you've got the regular crew, it's a painting solution to make them for Africa Corps. So we're trying to cover as many bases as possible with the crew.
Yeah. Now it's actually an interesting point you make, because not one of the things that's often difficult in 28mm is if you've got your bolt action figures. So mine, for example, are older. I've got Black Tree figures, and they're quite like games where they're quite heroically posed. They're quite chunky, and they're always vehicle crew are always a bit smaller. And so with the vehicle crew that you've got in these new 9.5 tracks, they fit perfectly alongside your other infantry.
Yeah, we don't make them a different scale.
Right.
They are literally...
But you know what I'm saying, is that often the truck driver looks a bit weedy compared to the rest of your army.
We don't do that with our resins or metals. I can't think of any reasons why we've done that.
No.
So we try and scale it, because especially I think once you've got plastics, as you know yourself, a lot of it is about conversion work and moving stuff about. So plonk this guy in, chop his
people love the kit, and that's I suppose another question is the German plastic kits. There's a lot of overlap in terms of kit bashing.
To be fair, across all of our kits, I mean, once you've got a set of arms with a rifle. We all know, we've all seen the photos of, a Fallschirmjäger with a Sten gun, or often a Allied trooper with a Schmeiser. So you can get a lot of that. In the game, it just classes as a rifle. Doesn't have to be a KR-98K.
Yeah, and there's a story to this model, right? How was he ended up with this particular
and it's more
rifle?
real.
Yeah,
not everybody was. I mean, I know a lot of us as gamers, we obsess with Orbats and tables of organisation. Oh, they must have this and this. In reality, it wasn't a 10-man squad. It was 6 because they'd had some guys on leave, or they had some casualties. They haven't had the reinforcements, and they'd have whatever kit they were carrying. The number of times people have turned up wearing a U-boat commander's jacket because they've done a deal to swap their red beret with the guy down the road. So it's not as pristine and uniform as we'd like to think. Yeah.
So the 9.5 track, that's a really nice one. You mentioned also other Axis miners then, which is something that people
so we released alongside the Fortress Budapest book a number of metal Hungarian figures.
Right.
And we've taken the opportunity to...
There's a couple of Hungarian divisions in Stalingrad, aren't there?
Yeah, I mean, I think Hungary is almost like Italy, almost like it. And like the Romanians, very, very undersold in terms of their time in the war. So we want to make sure that we give the Hungarians what they need. So we've got quite a few things going: border guards, mountain division troops, gendarmerie, arrow cross militia, lots more support weapons, more vehicles. So the Hungarians are getting a big boost.
Because they've got their own series of vehicles, haven't they?
Yeah, they do. They do use a lot of the German equipment. They do have their own as well.
Yeah.
And our Finnish range is something that we've had.
Ooh, Finns.
Now then, steady.
Hey.
So when we bought Bolt Action originally, the company,
we need bad guys that are good guys, you see. That's what we like about the Finns.
Let's start the Italians. They can be on both sides.
Yeah, but they're probably bad guys in both cases, really.
I didn't say that, Alessio.
Did you see what they did to Mussolini? They weren't nice about it.
Yeah. Yeah, well, the Finns obviously were very, very nice. They didn't carry lots of heavy knives. And
you got one guy who killed 500 people personally.
There's always one.
Like, maybe he should see a psychologist.
There's one bad apple every time.
It should bother you, right?
We're revising our Finns, and the models are amazing. So the level of detail and dynamism in them.
So there's going to be a new range in metal, presumably.
Yeah, well, it's going to be a new range. I'm not telling you what.
It's going to be a new range. I'm not saying it's in metal. Right, interesting. Might have to. What's the time frame on that one?
I can honestly say that it's sometime in the future.
Oh, like legit in the future.
And you've got an exclusive there. It's in the future.
It's in the future.
Just don't tell anybody.
May or may not be in metal. You heard that, guys. May or may not be in metal. Finns.
And obviously we've got loads and loads and loads of Italians on the go at the moment. So
yes, and there's a lot more to come, right?
So we've got plastic Bersaglieri, which are on the way, and plastic Alpini. on the way.
So you've done a plastic Bersaglieri was going to... You got an existing range in metal.
Yeah.
A Bersaglieri, but you're going to have plastic ones.
And again, like we're doing with the Italian army, is replacing the old range that we bought when we got Bolt Action. We inherited it. We've long wanted to replace it. Now's our opportunity to bring it up to today's standards. And the level of sculpting and accuracy on our Italians is absolutely amazing. We're working with an expert in the field who's he gives rivet counters a bad name. He's a fantastic bloke, but he knows absolutely everything.
He knows too much.
Possibly, but he's been invaluable to this.
Continues to be interesting.
So we now know that when our Italians come out, they are bang on. That the helmets are the right shape. They've got the right spread of weaponry for the particular troop types. We've had so many discussions about whether it's a cavalry carbine or a carbine.
Well, interesting you should say cavalry carbine. Across these range of Axis miners, are we going to see some cavalry?
Yes.
Are we going to see some bicycle troops?
Yes.
Are we going to see anybody using skis?
No, not yet.
I'm out.
Not yet. Not even the sniper team.
When I say not yet, because
I realise you don't actually fight from skiing, but you know
they've got pointy ends, so maybe
yeah. Well, it's Stalingrad, mate. Get in there, close. But
when we come down to doing the Winter War, yes, obviously.
We do the Winter War, yeah.
And maybe when we do the Alpini, we might do a few
homage figures.
Yeah, just like the old F.X. Gabejäger, and he's got it over his shoulder.
Yeah.
But no, we just got so many new things coming through for Bolt Action. Vehicles, loads of resin vehicles.
Yeah.
And there's loads of Italian stuff in the cabinet, which you're not allowed to see.
Lucky.
You mentioned bicycles, so we've got, at the moment, we've got a Belgian squad on bicycles. Right. So they'll be coming through. We'll be doing that for Japanese, etc.
Oh, right, Japanese bicycle industry, Singapore and all that.
Well,
bicycle troops, mate. It's the future. It really is. Or at least it was some people's vision of the future in the 1920s. It didn't pan out like that, but they had their role. All right. Paul, I really appreciate all your time. So you're going to sign this for for our dear Johnny B. Right, where's your beautiful young face there?
Oh, good Lord, mate.
Look at that when you were young and beautiful, mate.
When I still didn't have hair.
I'm saying nothing. So you get to pretend that like you're actually having your copy of it signed by Paul Sawyer. Oh, that Sharpie's like, ooh.
Get your own. There you go. I've defaced your...
Defaced is right. No, mate, you've improved its value by at least £1. Right, thank you for your time.
No problem at all, mate.
It's been a pleasure, a real pleasure. Carry on, soldiers. So if you like Bolt Action and you're looking to start the system or start a new army, on our website modelingforadvantage.co.uk we have a range of the starter sets as well as a few of the starter armies. Do consider buying from us as a way of supporting the channel. Thank you for watching.